Welcome, Dr. Kelly McQueen. She is the chair of the Department of Anesthesia at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Allison.
For those of us who may not know you very well, can you please give me a brief summary about yourself?
Sure. Well, you've already mentioned that I'm the chair of the Department of Anesthesiology here in Madison. I've been in this role for about almost 3.5 years, and I came to this role from Vanderbilt University, where I headed up their global programs. Prior to that, I'd been in private practice for 15 years.
Thank you for sharing your background. The field of anesthesia, as we know, is a pretty male-dominated field, especially in leadership roles. As a woman in a male-dominated field, have you experienced gender bias, and what advice do you give to others who may be experiencing similar issues?
Yeah, I think that you, Allison, you've probably heard from many in my generation who have definitely experienced gender bias, even in the most subtle and non-malicious ways, right? Just unintentional bias. But I think that they're throughout our profession, throughout medicine, not just anesthesiology, but in medicine, I think that there has been a long history rather, of gender bias and even of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that certainly we all need to advocate for equity in our workplace and equity in our profession. And we also need to be responsible to call out bias when we see it, and to be educated about implicit bias so that we recognize our own biases and can really work to conquer them. Bias is a human condition, and I think that we can accept that and we can move forward from there, but discrimination is not. And I think discrimination is really different and has to be treated differently. And if women are discriminated against in anesthesiology, it's something that we really need to fix as a specialty and within each of our departments. You mentioned leadership. We know that there's a shortage of women in leadership in anesthesiology. And in my view, we can no longer accept the excuse that the women just haven't caught up. You know, you hear that all the time. 70 years ago, there wasn't that many women in anesthesiology, and so it takes time to catch up. Well, it's now been 40 years that we have had plenty of women in anesthesiology, but they're still not being given opportunities, not being mentored, not being sponsored for leadership roles. And so we really have to do better there, because in order to lead a profession without bias and without discrimination, we need not only women in leadership, but we need a very diverse leadership as it regards race and ethnicity and broad representation. So certainly I've experienced it, I've seen it, and it's really a goal of mine to work against both gender bias as well as other bias, and definitely against discrimination.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's unfortunate that it still persists. I feel that as department leaders like yourself and the ASA as a whole, and all the other societies within anesthesia, are pushing to increase our diversity and try to get rid of discrimination as much as possible. So I think that's been a great advance right now. So I'm sure we'll see the fruits of that in the near future.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so.
Do you think your gender has influenced your leadership style? And do you think people you have led have been influenced by your gender?
I do. I definitely do. I think that gender is something we can't deny, right? How we identify, how we're raised, how people see us, it definitely impacts everything that we do, including how we care for patients and how we lead teams. And I think that most people on my teams would say that I do lead from a female perspective, but that doesn't mean that I don't support male perspectives. It's just that I use my skills and talents, some of which are based in gender, to lead my teams. And the one thing I would call out that may be more female, I'm not sure, but I'm really willing to lead vulnerably. And I think that that's something that I've found to be valuable when I'm able to share my own mistakes, when I'm able to share that I care about people and that I want us to move forward in a vulnerable way where we don't have to fear being wrong or being called out for misspeaking or being wrong about something. I feel like that builds solid teams. And so I've definitely led from that perspective. And I don't think I could do otherwise, to tell you the truth. I think if I weren't authentically, someone who identifies as a woman and a feminine presence, I don't think that I would be a good leader if I was trying to lead like a man leads. So I do embrace who I am, and that includes my personality as well as my gender.
Mhm.
I can't remember the last part of your question. Was it about
How do you think the people you have led have been influenced by your gender or by the perception of your gender?
I do. I do. I think both positively and negatively. I think that there are some men that would prefer to not be led by a woman. And equally, I think that there are many women who are happy to be led by a woman because they identify and maybe that they want to do that same thing. But I think that there is a lot of people in between who feel more neutral about leadership, who feel that there are strengths and weaknesses that men embody,
Mm,
and that both can be good leaders. It's just that we bring different things to the table based, again, not only on our gender, but also on our ethnicity, our culture, our families. We bring it all to work,
mhm,
even if we don't intend to.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. That's very important for us to hear. You have an impressive list of accomplishments. How do you balance your home and work life?
Well, I think that I would be the first to acknowledge, and I think you've probably heard this from others. I don't think I've accomplished a balance.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that, that my accomplishments are something that I'm proud of and that I've worked hard for. But I do think there's other things that I've missed out on and that I've neglected. And that makes me feel sad at times and at times regretful. And so I think what I encourage in young or early career anesthesiologists, especially that are women, is, to call out your priorities and to understand that while in the US, where we've all been fortunate to be educated, or most of us anyway, have been fortunate to be educated and to work, we have the opportunity to to do almost anything, but we often can't do it all at the same time. And so we need to be honest about what's most important to us and what we want to work on now, recognizing that, like me, at some point in your life, you might go, wow, I missed that opportunity and I'm really sad that I missed it. But
Mhm.
that's common, and that's sort of, again, the human condition. We can't do everything, and so we have to prioritize what's most important to us. And I do think that having more women in leadership has allowed for more balance in terms of part-time work, being able to have a family and take time for family as well as your professional life. But I think for many of us of my generation, there were some missed opportunities because we were really striving to keep up and to accomplish what our male colleagues accomplished.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I don't like the word work-life balance because there's no such thing, and I agree with you. I think that's great, advice. What you're saying is learn how to prioritize, um, and your priorities change with time, because of your career accomplishments or because of your personal stuff. But yes, you, like everyone else, has not figured out that it's
Right, right. I'm still trying, and I agree, I don't have to be balanced, but I would at least like to, I'd like to make sure that I prioritize time for wellness
Mhm.
and time for self and time for community, and so I'm still learning that.
Burnout has become such a major issue in
Mhm.
the healthcare industry, but also in anesthesia. What do you think we can do to help prevent burnout or kind of work on reducing burnout amongst ourselves? And what have you done for yourself?
Yeah, I think burnout is a reality that we're going to live with really for as far as I can see into the future. I agree with you. I think COVID really amplified our burnout, but
Mhm.
I think that there were always aspects of our professional life that led toward burnout. And I do think it's good now that we are more aware and that we're focusing on it and looking for strategies to combat it. In some ways in medicine and in anesthesiology, we're lucky because one of the things that decreases the opportunity for burnout is purpose.
Mm.
And so we're lucky because we have purpose in our work. We get to see good outcomes and get good feedback from our patients, and that really helps lead to fulfillment and may decrease our burnout. But we also have stress at work, and
Mhm.
we have bad outcomes, and we have sleep deprivation, and we have lack of control over our schedules because we work for the surgeons and for the hospitals. And so those pieces of our profession, we need to learn to mitigate their impact with while acknowledging that we can't get rid of those things. Those things are baked into the bread of anesthesiology, and I don't really see any way that we can change those. But we can mitigate the negative impacts on our lives by taking time to do wellness activities, to find time for ourselves, to exercise, to be more healthy, and to potentially really set boundaries between our work and our the rest of our lives. And in some cases, that means working part time or creating space otherwise to find time to really relax and unwind. My faculty often ask me about developing more autonomy. And, I think that this is another challenge in anesthesiology because of the way that we work. We don't schedule the cases. We show up for the cases. We don't know when the cases are going to end because of multiple factors. And so we get stuck. And, but we can have autonomy in how we work. We can choose our specialty. We can choose if we're part-time or full-time. We can choose to take vacation when we need it, and even when we don't. And we also can have agency in our work. We can become involved in local and national leadership to advocate for changes in our specialty that'll help decrease our burnout. And so I like to emphasize agency sometimes over autonomy because there's only so much we can do to be truly autonomous within anesthesiology. But there's a lot that we can do to impact our lives and our future by engaging and becoming involved to change the things that really frustrate us. The other thing that I would really call out is that we have to educate everyone to watch for the signs of burnout and addiction and really make sure that our systems have resources for people that are suffering from burnout and from addiction so that they can take time to heal and recover. Because these are, as I started with, these are realities of our profession, and they're not going away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for the comments, because it's true. Some things we can't change, as you mentioned, but we have to work within what we can change. And it's tough. But I'm sure between all of us, we can figure something out. I think it's
Mhm,
important for us
mhm.
to like share these positive strategies that have helped their group. On a more personal note, as an accomplished leader in healthcare, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Yeah, I would love to talk to that younger self. I really would. Um, I certainly would have told her to not worry about the small stuff so often, and to take more chances when given the opportunity. It's not that I'm disappointed about where I've ended up or where I landed, but I think that I endured a lot of personally just personally inflicted stress that I really didn't need to, and so I would give myself more breaks. I would give myself permission to be silly, to not be so serious, and to take time when I needed it. So, and I think that as well, I shared that I do have regrets. I would have prioritized family sooner. I didn't do that in time to have my own children, and I'm very lucky to have 8 nieces and nephews and to still have my parents. And now I really do prioritize time with them. But I would have prioritized that sooner. So especially for young women in medicine and in anesthesiology, don't feel rushed. I would have told myself that also. Don't feel rushed. There's plenty of time in life to accomplish everything and to achieve all of those areas of priority for yourself. So yeah, I wish I could have that little visit with her.
Thank you for sharing, especially your regrets. But I appreciate you bringing that up because it's an important issue, women's reproductive health. It's interesting, like by the time you finish residency and all that, you're like considered old to have children.
Right, right.
So, and it's a struggle for many. I myself had a lot of struggles. It's definitely a difficult journey, and I was fortunate to have a good group I hope other people find the good groups to help them through those difficult times if that's what they want.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate all of your time, and it's been really lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Allison. Likewise, I've really enjoyed the conversation and thank you for this project. I'm really excited about all the voices that you've brought to the conversation. I've listened to a lot of the interviews and they're really fantastic. So thank you for taking this on.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.